Hey y'all, it's Miss Johnson. Welcome to Double Math Afternoon Edition. At the last part of class, we previewed this, but I'm going to go over it step by step all together. The ways to use the vertex form of a quadratic in order to find the 4 key points of graphing the parabola, right? The parabola is the graph version of the quadratic. So the vertex form, let's just remind ourselves, looks like this. It's a number times x minus a number squared plus a different number. And each of these numbers affects the graph in a different way, which we'll talk about eventually. But for right now, we're going to algebraically talk about how to get the vertex, how to get the y-intercept, and how to get the x-intercepts from this form without having to factor or to box multiply into different forms. All right, here's our example that we'll be using in the video. We've got x minus 2 squared minus 64. And here you'll notice that we don't have an a, which means that a just equals 1. And this will happen a lot. We'll talk about how to do similar type problems if there is an a eventually. Okay, let's use the vertex form to find the vertex. The steps here are label your h and k. So we've already labeled the 1, but we need to find the h and we need to find the k. And then once we've labeled our h and k, honestly, vertex form is named vertex form because it's super easy to find the vertex. You just do h comma k. So let's do our steps over here. What is our a, h, and k in our example? We just said that our a is 1, but we don't even really use that for this problem. Just a fun fact. Our h, we're looking for the minus number. We're subtracting a 2. So our h is a 2. The reason it's positive is because in the form, in the pattern, we have a minus, and in our actual example, we have a minus. That means our sign should be positive. And then our k is negative 64. Again, in the format, in the pattern, it's plus k. Because we have a minus in our equation, we should expect a minus in our breakdown. Okay, step 2, our vertex is 2, negative 64. Bingo bongo. We're done. So the vertex is the straightforward one to find. We like it the best when it's in vertex form. Go team. I am going to delete this arrow and keep writing this both times because I now realize it probably should be here for every single example. All right, now let's use the vertex form to find the y-intercept. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to rewrite our equation, except every time we see a y, we're going to write a 0. Sorry, I've already messed up. We're doing the y-intercept. So it's actually when our x is equal to 0. Y-intercept is when x is equal to 0, so I'm going to rewrite the equation, but every time I see an x, I'm getting ahead of myself. Every time I see an x, we're going to write 0. So that's our first step. Our second step is we're going to simplify this expression. So we're just going to do PEMDAS stuff. We're going to say 0 minus 2 is negative 2. We're going to say negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. We're going to say 4 minus 64 is negative 60. All right, that number is my y-coordinate. So my third step is I'm going to write my y-intercept in the format 0, comma, the number we just found. Great. So over here, we know this is 0, negative 60 for our example. Over here, we know this is 2, negative 64 for our example. Now let's use the vertex form to find the x-intercepts. This one is the one with the longest most steps, but it's what we did in class, and it's not so bad. For finding the x-intercepts, that is when y equals to 0. Right? Let me make sure you can read this for the notes. Yeah, that's fine. So the first step we're going to do is we're going to rewrite the equation, but every time we see a y, we're going to set it equal to 0. Okay, so we've done this step. Now we're going to solve for x. And these next steps are all just solving for x, right? Start by moving the k term, our negative 64, to the other side. We're going to do that by adding 64 to both sides. Boom. Number 3 is an optional step. Because we don't have an A, we don't have to do this. But just as a fun fact, if it looks like this, where we did have a 2 out front, we would divide both sides by 2 before moving on. We'd make this 32 equals this squared. Right now, none of the questions in your homework have an A, but it is nice to know. But that's what would happen here. So this was step 1, this was step 2, right? Step 3 is skip. Step 4 is take the square root of both sides. So we take the square root of both sides, and we get plus or minus 8 is x minus 2. This is where the plus minus situation comes into play, right? Step 5 is we're going to break this into 2 equations. Let me move my over here. We're going to break this into 2 equations. One is the positive version. So this is 8 equals x minus 2. And then 1 is the negative version where we have negative 8 equals x minus 2. Boom. Step 6 is we solve both of these equations. Here we're going to add 2 to both sides and get that 10 equals x. Here we're going to add 2 to both sides and get that negative 6 equals x. And then these numbers are your x-intercepts. So now we're gonna write these in coordinate form, which is where you say this one is 10, 0 because y equals 0 for x-intercepts, and this one's negative 6, 0 because again the y is always 0. So over here we can say this is 10 and negative 6. This is the way to use the vertex form to find the vertex and the y-intercept and the x-intercepts, right? Standard form is pretty much only good for the y-intercept, right? Factored form, I should have typed this, I'll type it for the actual notes. Factored form is pretty much only good for the x-intercepts, right? But vertex form, you can find all 3 of them. You can find the x-intercept pretty easily. Not pretty easily, but you can do it. You can find the y-intercept pretty easily, and you can find the vertex super straightforward, right? So this, in my opinion, is the best form. Next week, we're going to figure out why it's so good. It's because it takes a lot of effort to get, right? There's always a cost. There's always a price. So next week, we're going to focus on how to go from standard form into vertex form, or how to go from factored form into vertex form. But for right now, let's do our assignment and let's practice using vertex form once we have it, so we can understand like what it's good for. All right, y'all, as always, I hope you're having a good time with life and with school. If you have any questions about either, come to office hours or give me an email. Bye.